No.
because I would have been glad to have read it and been prepared prior. So if I may, I'm going to read this if it's okay.
Mr. Chairman, if I could interrupt there real quick, I'm familiar with Mr. Dorsey and the situation here. He and I have had some lengthy conversations over the phone, and because of that, I've got some prior knowledge to this. So, with your permission, I'd like to recuse myself from the discussions here, unless you have specific questions, perhaps that I could help. I'd be glad to in any way, but I'll just let the two of y'all handle it.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Kaufman. I hurry is, but I'm a slow reader. I apologize.
Okay, that's okay. Yes.
Mr. Dorsey, thank you so much for your patience. The board's just reviewing a little bit more of the file, and then we will go ahead and resume the meeting, okay?
Do you want me to stay on the line and continue?
I'm
Do you
so
want me
sorry.
to just stay on the line?
Do you want him to stay on the line? Sure, yes, if you'd like to, that'd be great. The board may or may not want to hear from you after my recommendation and after reviewing the file, so if you want to just stay on the line, that would probably be great. Thank you, Mr. Dorsey.
Okay, I think we have read this now, Ms. Jennifer. If I may just ask a couple questions.
Absolutely.
It appears that Mr. Dorsey was working towards getting his renewal on December 31st, 2017. Is that correct?
Yes, that is how.
Okay. It further appears as I read that he paid his fee, which was $280, and that he submitted his continuing education, but his continuing education was deficient of the 2 hours of ethics and standards.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
That's correct.
So at that point in time, he was attempted to be notified, which it failed because of a bad email address.
That's correct.
Okay, so, and there was no subsequent follow up by he from the standpoint that he didn't receive any information as far as getting his license card or whatever that we do.
There was no follow up that he was deficient 2 hours.
But what I'm saying is, at that time, he should have had he would have had some affirmative notice if he had completed the process. So on his side of things, he never received anything affirmative and apparently never did question again until there was a question that came up later in 2018.
That's my understanding.
Is that
yes.
correct?
That's my understanding based
Okay.
on what he has provided us. That's my
Okay.
understanding.
And then along about that time, apparently he was told that he was late and that he was going to have to pay the $20 per month, which totaled the $240, which he paid by a credit card. And then that was, I'm going to say, mislocated. It was done, but mislocated as I read this. Is that correct?
That, that's also correct on my end.
Certainly, I wasn't privy to all of that, but from my reading of this, it looks like there was some misinformation that it was not received, and then it was located. So, and we confirmed that yes, in fact, it was received.
Okay. May I ask a question? And Mr. Dorsey, you can answer this question. Are you over 65, Mr. Dorsey?
Yes, I am. 78 this coming October,
Okay.
and I've been licensed for 45 years.
Okay. All right. The only reason I asked that question is by our rules, you're only required to have 2 hours of PDHs, and those 2 hours of PDHs are to be in ethics and standards. So the fact that you have more PDHs than that is very admirable on your part. But I just wanted to appraise you of that particular situation going forward.
The reason is first of all, I don't like to take anything online. I'm just not really in favor of that. And I also was taking continuing education 10 years before it was mandatory in Tennessee with some other states. And I believe in it. Of course, a lot of my people my age that are licensed don't believe in it. But also the fact that one of my best friends is Don Wilson, who writes Boundary Control and Legal Principles with Walt Robillard. And so I wait always to the end of the year when he comes to lecture here in Memphis or in Lebanon or in Pigeon Forge, whatever. And it's not only reunion, it's additional things that can be brought up that we, the surveyors in Tennessee, might not see, or let's say we're having a problem that they might look at it from a different standpoint and it might aid us. So there's a number of reasons why I do that. But I chose to do it, and I've been doing it asking.
Okay, thank you very much. Let me come back to Ms. Peck. So it's my understanding now that the question at hand is whether or not this board will waive the application requirement and basically reinstate Mr. Dorsey's license. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, okay. From the standpoint, I would like Mr. Dorsey to understand that from the standpoint of consistency, we have had several of these cases very similar to this, and that's one of the things that we have asked for. However, the uniqueness that I see in your particular situation, Mr. Dorsey, is that our staff has made some errors, and that's, we're all human, and that type of thing does happen. So I haven't heard from Mr. Dillahay just yet, but my notion is that we waive the requirement for examination because of staff errors, and that we respectfully apologize to you, Mr. Dorsey, for that potential lack of communication, although everyone was trying. Everyone was trying to do that, and I apologize that you had to pay the late fee. That was part in that misunderstanding part. And I'm going to stop right there before I say anything else and let Mr. Dillahay speak, and then we can go from here.
I agree with everything you said, and I would move, Mr. Chairman, that we reinstate his license
Okay, I'll second that.
without uh, any, any further requirement.
I'll second that, and I'll ask for a vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. And we have one abstention. Please note that in the minutes, Mr. Kaufman. Mr. Dorsey, now what I wanted to say in conclusion is that having a license for any profession is a privilege, and those privileges have rights that you need to look after. And one of those things are making sure that you do dot the I's and cross the T's. And I think you're the kind of guy that has done that. But in the future, if you don't have communication in a short period of time after renewal, I would ask you to be aggressive with our staff to find out what is going on if you don't have that confirmation. But I hope you've heard what we've decided, that we're going to waive the requirement for examination and reinstate your license. That, I assume, Ms. Peck, is up to the end of December 31st, 2019. And if he has already met all the requirements for the next renewal, then he will be renewed forward.
That's right.
Okay. And thank you very much, Mr. Dorsey, for taking your time to be patient with us on the telephone this morning. And thank you for representing this case and bringing it to our attention. And we certainly wish you good health and everything moving forward.
Thank you so much. And will I be also notified by either email or something, or is this sufficient right now that I can proceed and go back to work, of which I had suspended my work in the state? Although I'm licensed in other states and I am working in other states, that I can proceed and now go back to working as a surveyor here in Tennessee.
Yes, sir. You will receive a follow-up email, and we will also send you a hard copy in the mail.
Let me ask you this. Can I do this as of right now? Because there are people that have requested that I do work here in the state of Tennessee in Shelby County.
Well, Mr. Dorsey, if you would just not do the work until about 3 p.m. today, I think everybody will be covered.
And thank the board for listening and reading all this. And also thank, like he said, we are all human. We all make errors, like that. So, but I think that let me make this statement that I think a lot of the other surveyors, I know this next meeting, I will remind everybody that at the meeting I attend 2 days for the 16 hours, that they look at this carefully, because I do know of some people that are licensed that live out of state that really are familiar and I don't want them to go through what I had to go through over this 2-year period of time. But thank you so much, and I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Dorsey. Okay. Thank you, guys. On the education report next,
Yes, ma'am.
there is an attachment that was it's on your agenda as a denied courses for you to review. Caleb got some new information on that, so he's going to go grab that, and you're going to have a paper copy of that. So
It's
we'll
not
just,
on the iPad?
no, we'll skip over that.
My iPad's in space, so I don't know what
Is
it's
it?
doing. Yeah.
Do you have the,
That's why I like paper. I can't, there it is. It does one page at a time.
just loads one page at a time?
Well, page at a
it's-
time.
I think it's those scanned certificates that he sent, because when I was looking through them a while ago, it was doing me the same way.
Oh, for Mr. Dorsey? Okay. Yeah, there was a lot of,
So we'll hold on the education report then until we get the appropriate paperwork.
that's fine. We can go through the education report, the ones that you guys have already approved, and then the information. You guys had asked for 2 courses. You had deferred to this meeting and asked for more information. We provided the information. It looks like you've approved those 2 courses. We can go through that now if you want, and then come back to the attachment, or we can come back to it altogether, whichever,
Pleasure.
whatever your preference.
Pleasure.
Okay, let's just, I think you're right. Let's just come back to it and go to the legal report. And the legal report starts on page 50 on your iPad.
Maybe. All righty, I guess we're ready for Miss Erica.
Also starts page 5 on paper.
Yeah.
All right, we'll start with number 1, which is 2019-086-251. The complainant hired the respondent to do a property survey on July 1st, 2019. Specifically, respondent was to cut 5 acres out of complainant's property around their house. The complainant was not happy and felt that respondent did not do a proper survey. Complainant wanted the respondent to come back and do a new survey. The respondent explains that complainant had very specific requests regarding the boundary lines of the cutout. Once respondent dug into the complainant's deed description and the monuments, it was clear the property boundary was not cut and dry. It was typical of farm descriptions, lacking mathematical closure, as well as tight accuracy in some monuments. After some time, respondent realized that reestablishing the property line was not within their scope of services that was agreed upon. The work would have taken a considerable amount of time and fees. Respondent found another way to meet the original parameters set out by complainant and completed that rendition of the survey, which complainant paid for and received. Soon thereafter, respondent got a call from the complainant's adjoining neighbor about something they disagreed with regarding the shared property line. Respondent explains that complainant was not happy with the proposed solution and revision from the neighbor, and time went by with little discussion. Respondent set this aside and worked on other projects during this time. When complainant requested a plat with the proposed revisions, respondent did not immediately start working on them. This complaint was made as a result of that delay. Respondent admits that they failed to follow up and make the changes and revisions in a timely manner. However, all of the work was completed as of November 8th, 2019, and the respondent has apologized for the delay. The respondent did not charge complainant anything for the revision work. An expert review was conducted of the survey. The expert concluded that respondent has fulfilled their obligation to their client, which is the complainant. The complainant simply disagrees with the survey over minor differences with the description calls. The expert further concluded that no laws or rules were violated and no misconduct or incompetence was found. Therefore, my recommendation is to dismiss the complaint.
I would like to ask Ms. Erica, in paragraph number 2, the statement is made, and I wonder if the respondent made this statement, It says respondent realized that reestablishing the property line was not within their scope of services that was agreed upon.
That was probably my attempt at paraphrasing something the respondent said. Does it?
Well, what this appears to be is that the complainant had more acreage than what he or she was asking the respondent to carve out. Is what it appears to be, and apparently one side of that cutout, the way I'm understanding it, and Jay and Jackie may see it different, was against an outside boundary line which adjoined a neighbor. And the respondent apparently had discussed the project with the complainant, and they'd agreed to cut out 5 acres. And when the respondent got into it, it appears that he found that there was more work to do than probably what he proposed.
Yes.
So he tried to do something different other than reestablishing that property line because of what the fee may be. That's what it appears to me, and that is not a good premise for a respondent to work under. A respondent has the responsibility of reestablishing that property line, irrespective of whatever their agreement may or may not have been relative to, the title and transfer of that property. So, on the face, I do not disagree with your recommendation for this complaint. I'm just simply saying this particular verbiage takes me somewhere that I have concern.
I've got, if you don't mind, I'd like to kind of state what the respondent said specifically, because it's
Yes, ma'am.
pretty short and it might help clear this up. So in the respondent's response to this complaint, and this is what I was trying to paraphrase, the respondent states, it was typical of farm descriptions lacking mathematical closure, lacking tight accuracy, and lacking some monuments. We found and shot several deed monuments, the road, fencing, and maintenance evidence. We went outside of their property in efforts to glean pertinent information to competently reestablish the complainant's property line. And so it was the complainant's property line on one neighbor's side, and then the complainant's property line on another. It was quickly evident that one of those property lines to the east was not going to be a case resolved reasonably. Reestablishing this line was not within our scope of services that we proposed and would have added considerable time and fee to the complainant survey. However, from monuments we shot on the north, we felt confident on establishing the maximum west that a neighbor line could be, and from that we left the complainant property 50 feet. Therefore, the remaining complainant property will have between 50 feet and 80 feet of frontage, which we feel meets the original parameters set out by the complainant. Does that help at all?
That's a whole lot clearer.
Okay.
I understood everything you said, believe it or not.
So do you still feel?
No, ma'am. No,
Okay.
ma'am.
So if you could
the-
advise how I maybe could have rephrased this better, just because this is quite technical.
Yes.
And it could just help me in the future.
No, I'm glad that you have the ability. I mean, I know you see the entire file, and we don't, and we see the narrative that's prepared. But I'm glad you have the ability to reach into that file and, just like you did, read that to us.
Yes, sir.
Because just what you read, I understood every word of it. And that surveyor did the right thing because that was his professional opinion. And that's all we as surveyors render is a professional opinion. And that was his professional opinion of the best way to handle that particular project. So
I'm
yeah.
glad that we could clarify it.
Yes,
then.
ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for giving me that
I
opportunity.
understand. I apologize for the question, but
No,
I just want to make sure, I mean, obviously, I don't know that we could have, written him a letter of instruction or anything of any of those letters that we write. But, I just wanted to clarify that.
Yes, thank you for bringing
Okay.
that up.
Okay.
It helps
Other
me as
discussion?
well.
Just real quick, Mr. Chairman, if I may, it is reassuring that this file was reviewed by an expert and came back with no issues whatsoever. So I feel very confident in the staff's recommendation.
Okay. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve with a recommendation from staff.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Dismissed.
Thank you. We'll move on to number 2, which is 2019-091-171. The complainant claims that on November 1st, 2019, they saw 2 men in their front yard, one with a pickaxe and the other with a metal detector and a GPS locator pole. Complainant asked them what right they had to be on complainant's property, to which they replied they were in the right-of-way. Complainant claims the right-of-way is 25 feet from the center line, therefore alleges they were 35 to 37 feet in front of the center line and trespassing on complainant's property. Complainant claims that the men told them that they were hired by a landowner who is a quarter mile away from complainant's property. Complainant claims they were surveying all of the houses in a certain area that backs up to farmland that is technically in 2 different counties. Complainant states that they spoke with respondent on November 5th about this incident and explained that the men were on their property and outside the appropriate boundary in violation of the statute. Complainant alleges respondent apologized but offer no explanation other than stating who hired these men. Complainant also provides a picture showing a vehicle, which complainant claims is the unmarked vehicle that the men were using that day. It was just a white pickup truck. The complainant specifically questions why someone would hire a land surveying company to come in their area and survey all of the houses that border land where a named stone and gravel company has the mineral rights to. And of course, the complainant names and refers to this stone and gravel company throughout the complaint. Complainant later informed our office that they determined the reason behind what they call, quote, an underhanded survey. And that was the person that hired the land surveying company just sold their land to the stone and gravel company. Further, they have an easement on the complainant's street with a neighbor. Complainant does not understand why respondent needed to survey private property that did not adjoin the property being contemplated for purchase. Of course, that's what they allege. The property surveyed by respondent is in a different county, according to complainant. The respondent states that they had a crew surveying their client's property located in the southern end of what I'm going to call County A, adjoining County B. The property consists of a 175.6 acre trace located in County A with a 50-foot wide easement that crosses through the southwest corner of the subdivision located in County B. The crew needed to locate adjoining front property corners along the right-of-way of a named drive in order to correctly position the limits of the access road easement that crosses through the southwest corner of the subdivision. The crew was walking down the right-of-way and came to complainant's lot. It was a friendly encounter until they found an iron pin which disagreed with the complainant's idea of where that mark should be. Complainant called the police. The police realized the crew was surveying when they arrived and told complainant there was no problem with what the crew was doing. However, at that point, the crew left the site and has not been back. The complainant and respondent did discuss this on the phone after. Respondent explained that they had a right to access complainant's property according to TCA 62-18-124, and that is the statute that explains the powers and duties and the right of entry of a licensed land surveyor and their crew when they're completing their business and when they're doing their business. They stated the center line was 50 feet wide and 25 feet on each side. Respondent feels the underlying issue here is the complainant's dislike for the stone and gravel company. I completely agree, and so therefore my recommendation is to dismiss.
Okay. The only thing I would say about our right of entry, or right of trespass, as most surveyors call it is good up until the point that the party that you're going to go on asked you to leave. They can ask us to leave, and then we can seek the sheriff department or whomever to have us come back on the property. But the complainant in this case was perfectly within their rights to ask the survey crew to leave, even though we do have this statute.
Right.
So it's
and
not,
I feel like since they left and
yeah,
haven't
and they
been
left.
back,
And they left, yeah.
you know,
I
it's an
agree.
unfortunate situation.
I agree with your assessment.
Yeah.
And I'd move that we just
Okay.
approve the recommendation to dismiss.
I'll second that motion.
All right, we have a motion and a second to dismiss. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, dismissed.
Thank you. That takes us to number 3, 2019-091-861. This complaint was opened administratively by our staff. The license issued to respondent was released due to a system error, which led to this being opened. At the time this complaint was opened, respondent had not met licensing requirements when they received their license. But since that happened, the respondent has voluntarily surrendered that license issued in error, and therefore the director requested that we go ahead and close this complaint. And so my recommendation is to close and dismiss.
I'd just simply like to say I have high regard for the respondent for doing the right thing.
I do too.
I certainly do.
And it was pretty instant, I believe, Jennifer, right?
If I may, Mr. Chairman, one
Yes, sir.
question, and I'm not trying to drag this out or go into length, but is there any reassurance that the system error that was made here, steps have been made to not allow that error happen again? I mean, I don't know the details of a system error, but is that something that could happen again, or have we made steps to keep that from happening again?
We've addressed it, and it's my understanding that the precautions are now in place.
Thank you.
Chairman, I move we accept the recommendation to dismiss.
Second?
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Dismiss.
Thank you. That takes us to number 4, 2019-094271. The complainant hired the respondent to do a land survey, and at the time of this complaint, they wanted our assistance in obtaining a plat from respondent because they were having trouble obtaining it. That was the extent of their complaint. After this complaint was filed, the complainant almost immediately notified our office that they have resolved this issue with respondent. They were able to go ahead and purchase that plat and have received it. And the complainant actually requested that we close this complaint. Of course, that's not up to us. That's up to the board. But because I found no evidence of any violations with the little information I was given, and because the complainant would not want to pursue this, I recommend dismissal.
I guess I'm wordsmithing today, but I wonder why the word purchase was used. I mean, if you were my client and you requested me to do a survey, we would have an agreement about it's going to cost X amount of whatever dollars.
Right.
And that I provide you, my service product would be a plat or a map. So the word purchase implied to me that the complainant had to spend more money in order to get what they had asked for. That's what that word implied.
I'm just going to pull up the details here so I can properly respond to your.
Well, I think that's a possibility, but we also don't know what they agreed to on the front end.
That's true.
It could have been
Right.
that a plat wasn't part of the original services.
That's
Even
kinda
though
where I was thinking is.
That's what I was
I try to
thinking.
refrain from doing that,
Right.
but
It may have been
but we
something like,
can't do that.
you know, he wanted a line staked and that was
Yeah.
it. And
Right.
then he comes back later on and says, I want a
Right.
plat of the.
It
well,
does look
that's
like they did
additional services.
some revisions, and like they originally played a deposit and then gave them the rest. And at the end of the complaint, in the original complaint, the complainant stated, we would really like to have the correct survey done and obtain a plat. So it seems like there was something done afterwards and they bought a second plat.
I don't see anything. I just curious. My wordsmithing today. I'm sorry.
No, I appreciate it. Keep me on my toes.
I'd make a motion to accept staff's recommendation for dismissal.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, dismiss.
Thank you. So that concludes the new complaints for this legal report. And now I'd like to go over 2 complaints that we've already talked about at the last meeting. I'd like to represent them with some new information. So number 5 is 2019-069-671. At the last meeting, we discussed this at length, and I know the board wanted me to reach out and clarify what the complainant meant when, in the original complaint, they stated, sold. they alleged respondent, quote, sold a land survey to their neighbor in 2017, which is the survey at issue. And so the complainant and I, we emailed back and forth, and it was very clear to me that what the complainant meant was they just had hired, the neighbor had hired the respondent to perform a survey, which was completed, and that was it. They just used the word inappropriately, I would say. And so there's no additional violations here. I feel like that issue was clarified, but I discussed the civil penalty that we agreed upon and that the board voted on unanimously, which was $4,000 for 4 violations. 3 of those violations had to do with incompetence and errors within the survey. And then one of the violations was for a $1,000 civil penalty for unlicensed activity because the respondent's license was expired when they completed this survey in 2017. So my recommendation at this meeting, after discussing it with our team, is to reduce that civil penalty from $4,000 to $3,000, taking away one of the civil penalties for that unlicensed activity, because after research and after discussion, we feel like we have already disciplined this respondent for unlicensed activity during that time frame, because the respondent had come before the board in 2018 as their license is still expired. They never renewed it, and was then sent a letter of warning for unlicensed activity during that time. Therefore, if the respondent was to make the argument that they were being disciplined twice for the same thing, I think it would be a pretty valid argument. But I do feel very strongly about the other 3 violations within the survey. So I just would like to change my recommendation to a $3,000 civil penalty, taking away that unlicensed activity violation.
And if I understood you correctly, the respondent is now currently not licensed.
Correct. And they're we've sent an investigator out to talk with them. We've sent an expert out to review this survey, and they're not supposedly acting as a surveyor. They know the situation, and for whatever reason are not making efforts to renew it.
Question I have, when he was before us
In
previously.
2018.
And we issued the letter of
Warning.
Was it specific to this particular survey?
It was not, but it was specific to the time frame when this survey. It was just a very general statement. You have been engaging in unlicensed activity. You need to stop. So that would have covered, we just didn't know about this specific survey until this complaint came in.
Well, I think we probably learned a lesson in the way that we handled the case originally. It sounds like we kind of issued a blanket admonishment and letter covering all those, and now a specific instance is starting to come back. Not to say this is the only one. There could be 2, 3, 4, a dozen, who knows? But I think we kind of tied our hands a little bit.
That's how I felt.
But I think staff attorney makes a good point. That would be a valid argument, almost a double jeopardy in a sense. It would be difficult to prosecute that valid argument again. With that, I tend to agree with staff's recommendation there.
Okay, I have a question. Since this respondent, he or she, is currently not licensed and hasn't been licensed apparently since
2015.
2015, if we determine a civil penalty, what happens if the respondent does not comply?
We will have a formal hearing in front of the commission and an administrative law judge. And if they can get a higher civil penalty, they can get a more severe penalty. And if the respondent does not prevail in that hearing, then at that point, a judgment's issued, and if it's a civil penalty that's not paid, that can prevent them from ever being licensed again.
Okay, I understand the spirit of where you're coming from, but it's been my notion heretofore that we don't have a lot of legs to stand on with unlicensed individuals. So when this occurred for these civil penalties, this individual was unlicensed. He's no different than John or Jane Q. Public, although he had been licensed before, and yes, he produced a product that this board has jurisdiction over for this. So I'm just curious about that. That's my mindset there of, where are we at?
I would make the argument that because there is a product, there's violations.
I do not disagree with that.
And that would be my argument, and I'd have to make that at a hearing.
Okay.
And they could bring their own argument.
I understand. I understand. Okay.
Especially because they had a license for a certain amount of time and were they had the knowledge that was there. But that would be my argument, and I'd definitely have to craft it.
16 years, so it wasn't like that they
Exactly.
had just gotten it. That's true. Okay, I just wanted to ask that question because I know that we struggle with the admonishment, punishment, et cetera, of unlicensed individuals.
Right.
I guess more often than not, the true unlicensed individual, the one had never been licensed.
Exactly.
Okay. Any further discussion?
No further.
Okay, do we have a motion?
Motion to approve the recommendation from staff.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve staff's recommendation. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you. And this is our last one, number 6, 2019-063091. We had deferred this. Well, actually, we had talked about a civil penalty, but since I presented this at the last meeting, the respondent had tried to renew their license just this month and presented on their renewal application a new address, new email, new phone number. All of them were new. And we had not been able to get in touch with this respondent. Therefore, we hadn't had a response. And so the civil penalty was simply for failure to respond. I literally heard from the respondent yesterday, and they have committed to giving me a response pretty much immediately. So I would like to put this in a monitoring status so I can represent it at the next meeting with all of the facts and both sides of the story, and I'll make a recommendation at that time.
Members have any problem with that recommendation?
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
So if I may, I just want to let you all know that the processes put in place in this instance did work.
Yes.
We flagged it. The board was very concerned, and our staff flagged it. And so when he attempted to renew his license, it flagged and it alerted us immediately. We were able to obtain all the new information for him. So I commend the board on doing that because it did work.
Yeah, we literally denied it because of this outstanding issue.
Well, I would like to think that was a very good team effort with the attorney and the staff and the board. Okay.
That concludes my report. Did we get a motion on this last one?
I was going to ask if you
okay.
wanted a motion on this.
Yes, please.
Okay. All right,
To
we
just
need
to put
to
it
have a
in monitoring.
motion to monitor.
I move we accept the recommendation to keep it open and monitor and be presented at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Second.
Okay, have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay. All right. Seem to be just about the normal time that we take about 10 minutes, 5 to 10 minutes, if that's all right, Ms. Beck.
Sounds perfect.
Okay, we'll take a little short recess. Mr. Galen. Director to Hi, sir.
John Spear. I'm the general counsel.
Tim Linger. Very nice to meet
Jake
you.
Hoffman.
Nice to meet
Very
you.
nice
to meet you, sir.
Just wanted to stop by and
We
see
appreciate you coming down.
Good.
So,
Absolutely.
so
Appreciate your
all
time.
of these are under your purview, all these attorneys.
I think so. Sometimes I wonder.
Okay.
But
Whatever happened to Mr. Joseph?
I don't know, Mr. Joseph.
Oh, you don't know just, okay.
I've been here since May.
Oh, okay, so you
So
are
I'm just
new.
kind of
Okay.
Working my way
Is there a
around.
Mr. Green?
Mark Green.
Mark
Yeah, Mark Green, we had.
How was that?
Yeah, he was here
Mark
for a
is
bit.
one of the deputies.
Okay.
There are two.
Okay.
We have
Howdy,
Rick
Galen.
Ward,
Great to see you, sir.
and then we have.
Great to have you here.
You know, the other civil
Wow.
Okay.
We were talking about it last night.
Okay.
That's some scary stuff there. Yeah.
Well, I just like to extend my thank
You heard
you
any
to you
update on
from
it,
our
or-
board for taking time to come in and sit in for a few
me too.
minutes, and moreover, to come up
2
and
days
and
ago, I
meet
think
us.
you
It's
came out
always
from
nice to
Warren.
meet folks that we work with, in your case indirectly.
Well, I'm interested in my people, and talk a lot about all the people.
I'm young. I'd put a maybe. I guess. Oh, in that area, still.
To the success of the work that you do.
I read those things in a selfish
We
way.
really
So they
appreciate
go,
that. And as you can see, your young lady is doing a wonderful job.
we do it here. Okay, all right.
That's what we expect. That's
Yeah.
our expectation, and I know that's yours.
I understand, but she is,
do lunch with us
she is,
today?
and, you know.
You doing lunch with us?
And any of the boards that have the technical side, like A&E, for example, you know, and us, you know, all the boards have their own little different flavors, you know. But the ones that are a little more technical, it's a little harder on your folks.
Well, that's
you know.
why I wanted to come to this one. Education, accounting, real estate, motor vehicle.
Right, oh, yeah.
Got that. I mean, you get different personalities.
Right, oh yeah, different personalities, different perspectives, different issues.
So I'm learning, but I like to know how they perform, and I think we got.
Oh, really? Wow, I didn't realize you had that many.
Well, you know, there's a lot of different things, and you know, part of it.
Right.
Of a particular race, we try to match that up.
I think you've been doing good. You've been doing real
Appreciate
good.
it.
We've had some wonderful ones. We really have.
I enjoyed listening to what
good.
y'all decide. I think you guys did a great job.
They do. They make our job easy. They make our job very easy.
Thank you very
That's
much.
good. Thank you again for coming, sir. Good to meet you. Yes, sir.
Russell White. I just want to come and I serve on a couple of boards
Yeah.
with you. I just want to introduce myself.
Yeah, very nice to meet you.
Nice
Good
meeting
see
you. I'm
you.
trying to
Yeah.
learn more and more about what
Well,
we do.
good.
So,
Well, you're always welcome to come to our board meetings.
thank you. Hey, Mr. Hoffman, Russell White.
And yesterday. Yeah.
It's all right.
Oh my gosh. I'm ready for lunch. And by the end of it, my vending machine.
I quit smoking in July. So,
You're amazing. How do you feel?
better. Like I breathe really well.
Yeah.
So I quit smoking in July. And the thing with like being a smoker is that when you eat, when you're done eating, you smoke a cigarette. So what it feels like sometimes is that you're never
there's like-
done
that's like all my-
because there's no
Oh, wow.
period at the end of that sentence.
That's
So
really interesting.
so sometimes you feel like you just
Yeah.
have to keep on, and I think that's why so many people gain weight. Lucky. Oh, and I've been 2 or 3 days a week. I can't do much.
Whatever you think.
I'm up to 10. That's all I can. This is a lot of motion, a lot of weight to get in motion. People don't understand what it's like. It hurts to be.
Yeah.
We're too old to teach a new dog old trick.
is a whole, like the times when I've been like, oh,
Yeah, you get all like,
why
yeah.
am I smoking?
That happened to me. I've had one slip since I've worked.
Yeah.
And that happened in November.
All of it's amazing.
Amazing.
Why did I ever do that?
And I'm like, I'm having a cigarette.
Uh-huh.
And he's like, are you sure you want to do that? Are you sure you want to do that?
You're like,
And
leave me
I'm
alone.
I'm like, heck yeah, we're doing this. And then I smoked it, and I'm like, this is the most disgusting.
Oh, wow.
And it didn't give me the
Yeah.
It didn't give me the feeling I wanted it to give me.
It's kind of like whenever you're like, I want like
Did
a...
you do that too? Did you?
I quit whenever.
When I got pregnant.
Carol, I love you.
It was the 80s. Everybody
Who
smoked.
cared? Yeah.
But we went out.
I smoked at work at my desk.
We went out like.
We're really testing you today. Thank you very much. So I know it's the least I could do. So this iPad is the one that's specific to that attachment. That one, if you wanted the board to look at, you did not.
Yeah, that helps too.
Drinking, you always want to smoke.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Even if you don't smoke, you want to smoke when you
Yeah. A lot of people I know that are not smokers will have a cigarette when they drink.
My sister.
It's awful, and it didn't give you the feeling, did it?
And I was like, oh.
It really makes you mad. It makes you mad.
Because you know, like people say the nicotine thing. Like I've tried to smoke a cigarette before, but like I don't get it. Like I never, I've
If
understood.
you did it long enough, you would.
Really?
Oh yeah.
Because my sister, like, she loves cigarettes, like she drinks. Like I don't get the, like I don't inhale it to where it's like a nicotine whatever. You know what I'm talking about?
I guess if there were one thing in this world that I could wish was not bad for you, that might be it.
Really? What about like sugar?
Well, that is bad for you.
I know what I'm saying though. Like, do you wish?
Always like sugar and.
Yeah.
Did Eric believe us?
She should. A lot of them.
Like today.
A lot of them. But yeah, I think that went really good.
I think so too.
I mean, yeah. Totally. That way about your law license working for you. I would never do that because of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like
No.
even
With
CPA
every
people,
with
like,
every attorney I work with, I'm like, no, this is your license. I'm not going to do that.
and then these people just
Yeah. It's very. That's what I say. And it wouldn't surprise. That'd be that's my prediction.
No, we all have to stay.
That guy was bragging on you back there, Jackie.
No.
I don't know how to handle this.
Yeah, you know,
Talking about Jackie Dillon?
Who was that guy? He used the word mentor and everything, that guy.
Ah,
That's pretty heavy. Oh, you got yours on over there. Don't be touching mine.
We've got two now.
Yeah, Yeah, I can't operate one, I got two.
I didn't know what it was.
Makes no sense.
This is the education report that we didn't get to.
490 pages?
Yes, absolutely.
Supposed to read every
Can we
one
ask
of
for time? I'd like time to read, if you don't mind.
You're talking about,
On the record.
reconvene
I'd like to go
after
on the
lunch.
record and then allow us time to
Hey,
read.
you will not believe this, but when I started on the board and when Jackie was here in his first term, we received an envelope or a folder when we came here and sat down. And any topic we had to sit here and read.
Yeah,
And
that's
our
the first
meetings,
time
our
we looked at it.
meetings were 2 full days.
Yeah.
Days, full
Seriously,
days.
things have changed. I guess we're ready, Mr. Caleb. Okay. All right, we've had a nice 10-minute break, and we are back. And I think that we want to back up just a little bit, Miss Jennifer, to the education report.
Yes. It's page 45 on your iPads, on your initial iPad.
Had one.
All right, so page 45, if you guys want to peruse that. The first two are courses that you deferred last board meeting and requested more information. More information was provided, and they are now on the approved list. So if you guys want to just peruse those, in good shape.
Where do we find this information? Additional.
Pages of it.
Oh, the
That's all
first two.
ASC?
My understanding is that Jamie emailed you guys the
I had
information.
emailed all of that to you guys on the 25th after the board meeting, and you guys all emailed me back with approved courses.
And it's just those top two, those first two
Gotcha.
listed.
All right.
And then the addendum is a second, is another issue.
You need action on just those two?
Just approving the education report, not the attachment one that is on your other iPad that I just gave you.
I mean, you need to approve, do we need a motion to approve the education report as a whole?
Yes,
Okay, so we need to wait, okay.
as I think that,
Can we go ahead and approve the education report?
Yes.
And then we can address whatever the second issue is?
yes.
Okay. Chair would entertain a motion to approve the education report as currently presented.
Second?
No,
So,
we need a motion first.
Oh, thought the,
Chair
I'll
didn't
make the
make the
motion
motion.
then.
Okay.
Thought that was the
Thank
motion.
you.
My bad.
second.
Okay, now we have a motion and a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now the education report has been approved. Okay, Ms. Jennifer.
Okay, so if you would change to your other iPad, because this is, what, 460 something pages?
90.
90, okay, 490 pages. That is a course that Mr. Linger felt was not appropriate because it was more of an engineering criteria. So, but he wanted it presented to the board just to defer to the board for a final approval or denial. So that's what all of that information is.
I will simply state to the board that I've reviewed this, and albeit the courses are very professional and are appropriate for an application, in my mind, with engineering, since they're presented by ASCE. I was of the opinion after my review that they were not survey specific enough. I guess that'd be a fair way of saying it.
Chairman, I'm going to agree with your suggestion there. It's a very professional presentation here, produced by ASCE, presented by ASCE. and the topics do touch on the fringes of surveying. However, the majority of it, in my review, deals almost directly with engineering, as one would assume. And the instructor himself, as it's listed here, a lot of credentials after his name, but does not have an RLS after his name. So that was another just small piece of things that stood out to me. So I'm going to stand by with the initial recommendation of not approving.
Mr. Dillahay?
I really hadn't had a chance to look at all these in detail, but from on the surface, I tend to agree with Jay.
Motion on that of any kind, or just stand by the initial?
Would have only been necessary if you guys wanted to approve it.
Right. Because we had already denied it on the education report that we just approved.
Yeah.
That's correct.
Yeah, but again, just to restate, it's very professional. I mean, it really is. I think it's just wrong location. So, nice work, though.
Moving on to the director's report on page 57 of your iPads. Back to the first iPad.
Okay.
You can put those other iPads away now. Just so you're not confused. So the director's report, the first thing is the budget. You guys can see that there. In the 2019 year-end reserve balance is $213,500. You'll see the spike in licensing revenue in November of 19. That's just before all the renewals and during all the renewals. Next on the agenda is the licensee count. And as of now, we have 1,027 active land surveyors that have renewed, 1,027. We have 94 land surveyors that have not yet fully renewed their licenses. So that brings us to 92% having renewed and 8% having yet to renew. You'll see along this line is our reminder that we sent out, and that is page 58 of your iPad. That is where we reminded them of their expired grace status, and so this appears to have served its purpose since we are at that 92 percentile.
That reminder, was that email and hard copy, both? One?
It was emailed.
Okay.
Yes. And just to be clear, it is the licensee's responsibility to make sure that
Absolutely.
we have
You
all of their.
reiterate that, but they don't listen often.
Okay, and then we have a new policy here. Next item.
Can I ask for one more number?
Yes. Yes.
If you have it, and you may not have it, it would be nice to know, at least since we're in a January meeting, what the number of examinees were in 19 and how many passed.
Okay.
Because that kind of shows us what our potential growth is, hopefully.
All right. I can get you that information.
Okay, thank you very much. Sorry to interrupt.
No. Next item is the new policy. We discussed this at the last meeting, which it was decided that in an effort to ensure expediency in the education course approval process, in the event that board members have not approved or denied, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Hey, may I interrupt again, Miss Jennifer? Could we go back to these not renewed? If I remember correctly, weren't we giving them a grace period of 30 days?
Well, to be clear, they're in an expired grace status now.
Correct.
And the expired grace status under your board, under this department, is a year.
Okay, okay. Well, let me rephrase that. The 30 days that I'm referring to is that this list of currently being 94, it'll be something different tomorrow, very probably. Whatever that number is, after January 31st, all of those renewals will be audited, if I remember our discussion about audits. And I just want to clarify that so that everybody's clear on that, because you're 100% right that yes, by statute, we have 12 months that they can pay penalty and be reinstated. But if I remember our discussions about our audit, which I would assume that the percentage out of the 1027 is in the process of being purged for that audit. And I want to just clarify that whomever is left come February the 1st will also be audited.
Okay.
If I understand that procedure correctly, I just want to make sure.
I will.
So even though they, I'm going to say, drag their feet for the next 12 months, or some month in between there, then they will be audited.
I will find out.
Just want to clarify that, but that's my understanding of what I thought we discussed about the audit.
Hey, then the first 30 days is grace without penalty. Is that correct?
No.
No,
Not?
No.
Correct.
$20 a month, yeah.
Correct. It's $20 a month.
Their license is expired as of the midnight to 31st of December in the odd year. That's what the rule says.
But they remain in an expired grace status for 1 year, for 12 months.
Which means they can still survey and stamp things, even though they've not concluded.
They're just going to be assessed.
Right. Now, I will ask, of these 94, do we have a sense of, are they more money, are they more PDHs, or are they both, or we don't have that sense?
I do
Okay.
not have that information. I can do my best to work with Caleb to try to run some reports that would show their deficiency area, if it is monetary or if it's PDH.
Because heretofore, the primary issue, and I'm talking about the renewal January 1, or December 31st, 17, December 31st, 15, the primary issue has been continuing education. Now, obviously, the continuing education should not be an issue this time because they're having to sign an affidavit. As opposed to turning in the paperwork.
So my information now says that there are about 10 waiting on payment of fees or completion or proof of attending the PDHs. So I don't know what the other 87 are waiting on. That's my next question.
Right. I mean, some may not renew,
Not intend to renew.
right, or may have become deceased or something else.
Right.
But I apologize for interrupting, but I wanted to just kind of clarify that point because I want to say 2015, after the 2015 renewal, we had 100 and some, and they were dragging on. I mean, it was still 100 and some in the middle of April. And we had some issues, but, over those prior two renewal periods, we've also had some changes as well. And I know we're not a smooth oiled machine on this process because what we just did was the first time for that process.
It looks like because the rest of the 97, or 94, the rest of the 84 are not the issues of the PDH or the fee, that perhaps they just aren't interested in renewing. Perhaps they're not in business. So it does look like it is a small minority, only 10 of them. So we'll say roughly 10% that it is due to PDHs or not paying a fee. So that's
Be interesting to see where
information.
those numbers are come April.
okay. Well, and what we can do is we will likely send out another email reminder that's similar to this email, and then we can have that information for you at the next board meeting as well, so that you have that to see where we are.
Thank you very much, and again, I apologize for interrupting.
All right, so the new policy, that's what we discussed last board meeting, just to make sure that we are approving these courses as quickly as possible, and just ensuring that the licensees have that ability to take the courses, and the instructors know that they're going to be approved. So in the event that board members have not approved or denied an education course within 15 days after presentment by board staff, the decision-making authority is granted to the executive director. And that's what you guys voted on last meeting, to streamline that process. Okay, next order is under the new business. The board had requested information regarding the scope of the investigators, as Erica was relaying the information to you about what the investigators what they had done and why they had done it, or in what manner they had done it. So the board had asked for information regarding what those contracts look like when we contract with those investigators. And so the scope of those services is on your iPads. Starts on page 60, I believe. And that's not something that necessarily we have to decide on today, but it's information for you guys to have. And if there are some ways that we could improve that, we can tweak it, that make it, that provide a better service so that the board doesn't have as many questions as to what the investigator actually did.
Excuse me, investigators or the reviewers?
The reviewers.
Okay.
I apologize.
I just want clarification.
First off, could you disseminate this information to the board members by PDF?
I believe this was on the emails that we sent you with the agenda. It wasn't?
No, ma'am.
Don't recall it.
I have a complete copy here, and it wasn't in it.
Yeah, but that could be sent to us, that'd be
Yeah,
helpful.
yeah. Well, we got 27 pages, I think it was.
We will definitely put that on the agenda for next time for after.
I would
you guys-
also ask that it would be kind of nice to know maybe how many reviewers we have and when their contract comes up, because the reason I say that is because if we felt like that there was some additions, modifications, or something to this scope, that might be a good time to begin to implement if there was a contract coming up.
We currently have 2 reviewers.
Okay. What we used to have.
Originally, it was
Yeah, Jamie said 3. Sorry.
We have 3. And we will look up when their contracts expire. Okay.
So I noticed one thing in here, just a quick question. So do you, as the executive director, assign that? I thought the attorneys assigned that.
Well, there's a collaboration with the executive director of what is needed, and then the attorneys draft the documents, as well as contracts department. So it's a collaborative effort, but then the final documents come from them. Next order of business is Mr. Northcutt presented to the board last board meeting. He read a letter requesting that there be PDHs for attending the board meetings. You guys have on the last page of your iPad is his letter. You guys wanted some extra time to be able to consider that. I'm happy to hear from the board on your recommendation on how to do that. And then there perhaps needs to be some discussion about tracking so that our staff can adequately track and give them credit for the attendance.
I may, Mr. Chairman. Yeah, this one came through a former board member, Galen Northcutt, who is with us this afternoon. Appreciate you being here. And the gist of it is he's requesting that licensed surveyors that attend these board meetings here be granted, I think he just asked for 1 PDH in total for attending here, not necessarily participating, but just the attendance here and absorbing what goes on here. I think it's an outstanding idea. I mean, where else are you going to get more in-depth surveying, direct knowledge than attending this? In fact, during the last break here, I was speaking with another licensee who said just that. He's here because the things that he learns from attending this meeting. So I personally am in favor. It does bring up one question, though, in that these meetings are obviously videotaped and broadcast. I believe it's live, I think, but also they're on YouTube to watch at a later time. The question, you probably see where this is going, the question arises if someone were to say, well, I sat down and watched on YouTube the whole proceedings from beginning to end as if I were sitting in the chair of the audience, which she kind of has a valid point. Does that count as well? I tend to not go along that measure, to be quite honest with you, although they are listening and absorbing exactly what goes on here, no different than somebody sitting in the audience at the time. I find that difficult to validate or to, it's easy enough to hit play and then go off and do a chore of some sort and come back and say at the end, say, yeah, I watched the whole thing. So I would just caution that while I am in favor of the actual physical attendance here and granting that 1 PDH, because I think it's a perfect opportunity, I would caution if someone were to request that same credit for having watched it by electronic means or some other means, just on the sole basis that it's extremely difficult to validate.
And can we limit it to just people that are in attendance physically? I mean, is that?
My understanding is that the board has the authority to approve the PDHs, the education. So if the board approves it, I think
it would be my
within
suggestion on the way
purview.
to validate those that actually were here there is a sign-up sheet right there. I probably would suggest that those who are here today, as a matter of fact, make sure you're in on the sign-in sheet with your professional number. I think for me that validates enough. Obviously, I see who's here, but I think for board standards and paperwork process, just having the fact that they signed their name, put their number here, and they were here, I think is enough.
If I may, Mr. Northcutt's letter says 1 hour continuing education credit in ethics and standards of practice for each hour in attendance at the board meeting. My notion there is, and Jay, you hit some of the points that I had, is to limit that to 2 hours, because at the end of the day, that's all someone is going to need for ethics and standards is 2 hours in a biennial period. Now, obviously, that may discourage them from coming over one time, but, we certainly encourage them to come every time if they would like, anyone to be here. My notion, I'm in favor of what I'm seeing here. My notion would be just simply to limit it to those coming and attending to a maximum of 2 hours.
Certainly, the only other way to accommodate the online viewing would be if they presented an affidavit. But if we are implementing something new for purposes of staff, it is certainly more streamlined to simply have the sign-in sheet, have their number, and that might be the better way to implement it, and then perhaps move forward with affidavits or something of another nature in the future. But just for now, to implement it, it has to be physical attendance.
I agree, and the fact of physical attendance, if we do make that restriction on it, my justification would be that allows, by attending it, that allows the participant to ask questions. They're more than welcome, any member of the public more than welcome to not only sit in, but participate. Come to the podium, ask questions, back and forth conversation, whereas obviously the YouTube or electronic means prohibits that.
And I know this board has, in the past with continuing education, has been very favorable towards seat time. And I think even in your profession as an attorney, in most all of your PDH is pretty much seat time. They may have changed.
They're not. There's
Okay.
a certain number that can be done online.
Oh.
Yes.
So if there's no further discussion, do we have a motion on this?
I'll make the motion for approval.
Okay. State your motion.
Let's see, I'll just read it straight from the letter there. That the attendee be granted 1 hour continuing education credit in ethics and standards of practice for each hour in attendance at the board meetings, being these meetings, with the subjective limit of 2 hours. Is that correct? You wanted to amend it that way?
Yes.
That would be the motion.
And you want to add in about the sign-in as well?
Yes, and the participants have to sign in, obviously, with their name and registration number.
Okay. We have a motion?
I'll second the motion as
Okay, we
stated.
have a second. Any other discussion? All's in favor?
Aye.
And I would like to personally thank Mr. Northcutt, former board member, for bringing this to our attention. And hopefully to the surveyors that are here and the ones that are not here, maybe viewing otherwise, hopefully that they will come, and hopefully there are things that we do and say are a great benefit to the profession throughout our meetings through the course of the year.
Next, the one thing we do need to clarify is, are we implementing that as of today so that the members here today are going to receive credit, or is this?
We need to make a motion for that?
Well, I think you guys.
I think it absolutely should count, yeah.
Okay.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Okay. Yeah, I'm fine with that. If we need to make a motion, we will. Let's do it. Okay, make a motion, Jay.
I would make a motion to further on that last motion that was approved of allowing the continuing education credit for their attendance here to be effective with today's meeting.
Second.
We have a motion, second. All's in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay.
Lingerfeld, I believe that the remaining item is information that you would like to present.
Okay. On March the 6th, if I'm correct, the Tennessee Association of Professional Surveyors will have a meeting in Murfreesboro at the Embassy Suites. Several years ago, for your edification, Miss Jennifer, we began going to their meetings as a board. It's been handled in many different ways by other prior directors, but basically what we try to do is we have a 2-hour time slot. Now, I realize that's a lot of time to stand up in front of about 500 surveyors and talk to them about something. But you'll find that it actually goes pretty quick, and it's really very informative. It really is. So what we try to do is we try to kind of have I'm going to say a thumbnail agenda of some topics that we'd like to talk about. It's certainly, if you are available, it's certainly going to give us an opportunity to introduce you, to allow you to speak with the group on any topic relative to our profession that you want to speak to, whether it be, the licensing process or whatever it may be. And of course, anyone from staff is welcome to be there as well. Like I say, it's been conducted as a board meeting, and it's been conducted not as a presentation. So a variety of ways. Whatever your pleasure is on that, we want to only do it per how the state rules are and so forth, since we're all going to be together at the same place and talking surveying anyway. So the purpose of the topic was to kind of get a rough agenda of some things that we might like to talk about.
Can you remind us of the date?
March the 6th. It's a Friday. And I think our time slot is, I'm trying to think.
I think it's afternoon.
It is afternoon. I think it's
1:30, 3:30, something like that?
1:30 to 3:30, yeah, somewhere in that
window.
range, yeah. That sounds right, because it's after lunch on Friday.
And unfortunately, I'm going to be attending an NCARB event in Boston area, but I know that Erica is interested in going, and then certainly Caleb, who's the manager and the expert here, is interested in going. So I think that would be valuable. And I'll look into the board meeting issue. I need some clarification on that. So, but yes, thank you for the invitation.
We have a gentleman here with taps that might like to speak. Would you come to? Okay, 2 to 3:40, okay. Thank you very much.
Yep.
Okay. So, obviously, one good topic is certainly this renewal, since this renewal is brand new. We spoke about it last year and tried to warn folks a little bit, but some listened, some didn't, obviously. Maybe 94 didn't, or whatever it is. But that's always a good topic. And the group typically has questions that they like to have answered. So, between now and then, maybe we can communicate by email. And certainly, if Miss Erica's going to be there, whatever thoughts that you might have, maybe something on the legal side to kind of let them know a few things or whatever.
Talk about that, and we'll follow up for sure.
Okay.
It's just real quick. In the feedback that I hear from those presentations, it is very successful with the group of surveyors that are there. Literally, 400 or 500, literally.
Right.
And then 3 or 4 of us, and then some members of staff, and it opens that line of communication. It kind of breaks down that mystic wall of the board and us as the surveyors, which we are obviously a part of. But I've never heard anything negative about it. It's always been very positive. The one thing that we do caution each other, and we tell the group there as well, is we can't talk specifics about any particular case or disciplinary action, anything like that. We obviously build that barrier in there. But it is a great way to just kind of open the flow of communication with misunderstandings about either renewal process or possible rule changes in the ways, or we really need to address this. It's a lot of open ideas that we get. Quite honestly, it benefits us a lot. It's kind of nerve-wracking, quite honestly, being up there in front of all those guys. But we're part of them. They're part of us. They're just good old boys, just like we are, and they have legitimate concerns, just like we do. But it really is an outstanding opportunity on both sides. It really is great.
And we try to have some type of opening statement to make them understand, as Jay said, about complaints and so forth, but also about the fact that we're not there to make any kind of decisions or any changes in anything, things of that nature. And we've not really had a specific dialogue to that, so I know that might be something that maybe Miss Erica could work on as far as, or you, as far as some type of, just like our introductory notice, something of that nature, just to let folks know that, hey, we are here and we're doing this as, outreach, public service, whatever, but we want you to know that, we're not deciding anything here today.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. Have any other items? I believe this may be a record. I don't think we've ever had a meeting this short.
Never.
Problem is, the problem is for those 3 surveyors in attendance, we can only do an hour and a half of PDHs today. But you're half an hour being there, so that means you may have to come back one more time.
You can come back again, absolutely.
Hopefully you'd want to come back. Okay. Does anyone else have anything?
I think we have to.
Okay.
I do want to, real quick, not really a personal note, but just on general, I want to express our prayers as a board and as the family of surveying toward the family of Brennan Garrett, who had a little medical issue recently, somewhat serious as well. Just want to extend my thoughts and prayers to both he and his family and his work associates as well.
Thank you for Jay.
Also,
yes, all the
yeah.
board is concerned about that. Certainly are. And as always, we've lost some other surveyors recently, so that's an ongoing thing, and that's very unfortunate. And we do have something for their families as well.
Further.
Motion to adjourn?
Do we have to do the PDH?
Yeah, we have to make a vote on PDHs.
True.
1.5.
1.5?
Yep.
All right. Motion for 1.5 PDHs.
Second.
Okay. All's in favor?
Aye.
Okay. Last thing on the agenda is a motion to adjourn.
So move.
Okay.
Second, or
Okay.
whatever.
And I personally would like to thank everyone for all your hard work, the staff and everyone for all the hard work. And our board continues to improve and be very efficient. And I think that's what everybody desires. And we certainly appreciate all your efforts very, very much.
Very much.
Oh, did I
Thank you,
get to
guys.
do this? I wanted to do this.
Do it.
Adjourn it.
All right.
Do it on the iPad.
Wow. Yeah, there you go. I should have done it on the iPad.
It's unruly,
I didn't think about that, Jay. That'd be good. Yeah, I could have got two. I could have got like a drummer.
It's unruly attendance. You have to keep them calm.
Oh, okay.
Man, that crowd out there is tough.
Yeah.
All right, so who gets these?
Jamie.
Jamie, do they get credit, education credit for going to the TAPS thing?
Yeah,
They will
They
get,
do?
Yes.
they have the opportunity
Yeah,
to
they get 2 hours.
all of their credit.
Okay.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's
No,
already
he's talking
covered.
about attending the conference.
What the TAPS thing in Murfreesboro?
Yeah. Yep.
They get credit for that,
Yes.
yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
That's,
Yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
they
That's
can get up to
that's
50.
actually our best venue,
Yeah,
the Surveyors, because like you see, we're getting about half of it.
yeah, you are.
Yeah.
Yeah. And if they attend the whole 3 days, I guess it is, they cover their full 15.
Yeah, 15 hours.
Which is why 99% of those people are there.
Yeah.
To get those 15, then
Yeah.
they're out.
Yep.
Absolutely.
And we all hope it rains those days.
I was gonna
Record.
That is by far a record.
I know poor
Never.
Toby was gonna come in at 1.
I remember looking at the agenda going, wow, that's going to go pretty quick.
Who's coming in?
Yeah, Toby was coming in at 1 to
Oh,
hang out with you
And we
guys.
just said it'd be the schedule.
I'm not even
Couldn't
saying.
wait.
I need to mind my business. Okay. That's
You're right, so
all.
in court cases, usually they go longer than, lawyers always say it's gonna be 5 minutes and it's 5 hours.
Yeah.
Or as my husband says, if I say I'm ready in 5 minutes, he says that 5 minutes left to go in the fourth quarter and everybody
Thanks,
has
sir.
all their timeouts. That's what he assumes by 5 minutes.
Are you cleaning those cases up?
I'm trying, man.
Are you?
People won't just stop.
It's
being
hard,
crazy.
isn't it?
It is, and it's clients I've had for 12 years somewhere.
Oh, yeah.
I know what I was going to
And then I
ask
did their
you.
child
Since
custody,
you're
and then
from,
their next free.
since you're from Chattanooga.
Feeds itself, doesn't it?
Do you know my nephew's wife, Kara Hill? I don't know if I don't think she goes by Hill. She works in the federal bankruptcy.
Absolutely. No, I don't even know.
I thought we were still talking.
That's,
Maybe you might know her.
I don't.
She's that girl something else.
We were talking.
Yeah.
and
She's
that
a
was- I'm like,
CPA.
I've been bowling along here for 3 years and
All
never
the attorneys for the federal
But there's
bankruptcy.
another reviewer
And
on
that
it?
office in Chattanooga.
Call them reviewers.
Ah, that makes sense, Jamie. Thank
She's
you.
good at math.
Yeah, she's really.
That's why I went to law school, so I had to do math. I heard the business building at Auburn was really pretty. I never really went in there, but I heard it was really
Oh, that's where you went to school, was Auburn?
undergrad. Yeah.
Thank you.
All right. Up highway.
Back in time. They're going back to the office. Wait a minute.
We get home early.
Really?
I'm all
Absolutely.
I'm all about getting home
I will
early.
tell you that what the staff is doing here, is that the
It's
effort they
better,
put into
yeah.
it, that it has, when we were coming.
Days.
2-day meetings.
Two-day meetings, exactly right.
We couldn't get through all that stuff in even 2 days, of course.
I remember that back when I was still
Now,
working with you at Reagan Smith. It was time.
It has. I mean, it's
Of
just
course, a
amazing.
big part of that was reviewing all the
I'm a little surprised
applications.
that
Yeah.
This quick. Yeah.
Yeah.
We
This quick.
streamlined that
I wonder what was,
considerably.
I guess we don't have application to review. That was always an after lunch type thing.
Yeah.
So, and that's being held,
sometimes
electronically
it was
sent to
all
us
day.
now, so that's part of it.
Yeah.
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. Well, I've come in early. and started
Legal
doing
cases
applications
were
just so we could
pretty
get
cut
them
and
done.
dry today,
Yeah.
so, yeah. It's good, it's real good.
Yours?
Thomas, one question. 2 hours. That's not going to be a limitation. Like again, you'll get.
We'll get 2 hours for,
Right.
Period.
Right. That's
and
like,
that's not per meeting. That's total.
that's total. So,
total.
so if you come again, you're not going to get any more hours.
You'll get high for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay. So it was limited to.
Two
Per renewal
hours
cycle?
per
Right.
renewal,
Yeah,
yeah,
renewal
right.
cycle, yeah.
Per renewal
Yeah.
cycle.
Gotcha. Gotcha.
Yeah, it's pretty easy for local guys.
Yeah.
You can definitely jump in on that opportunity.
For the local.
A little disadvantage for you.
But I mean, it's still worth attending, in my opinion. I mean,
I didn't bring it up obviously at the time, and now we're adjourned. But so what if they call in and just want to listen?
Yeah.
That gives them an opportunity to.
That's right.
I was like, oh, wait a minute.
There will be probably
Somebody will be.
Somebody will get wise.
so I'll be honest.
Somebody's
Gonna call in.
See, my thought on it though is like you could have a recording of a presentation, but that doesn't mean you're going to
I'll be.
auditing a class.
Right.
Everything we. By the end of the year.
Surveyors do.
Professional surveyor always
That's,
does.
that's right.
That's the
So,
whole thing when we're on the board and you just have so many hours.
Average about 80 a year.
Yeah.
That's everything I'm involved
so
in.
to me, while it's beneficial, the opportunity's there. If you want to get it, come get it. Otherwise,
Good.
where extra chapters are.
Helpful too.
Do a lot of those
Members,
without an
everything too.
expense. A lot of them are available without expenses. You know, a lot of people always say, well, you know, the expense of it, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, there's a lot of opportunities.
And prepare.
Do with that. This is one.
Yeah. No, I agree.
It is gonna be a lot of information in a very short period of time.
Yeah, I'll send you this info and I can send you a copy of the.
That
should
Okay.
Conference?
We do have two, we have two reviewers.
I know we started with 3.
Yeah, we
There's
did.
2 now.
We have two.
Okay.
We'll follow up with you very soon about TAPS. I already mentioned it to Stuart. He thinks that's a great idea. We're going to talk to Roxana about what they've done in the past before we get with you, but I think that's a done deal.
Do a lot of talking.
I don't know about that.
Jackie don't like to talk.
I don't mind talking. Now, 400 or 500 people, I'm going to have to prepare myself for that. But I usually, if I know what I'm talking about,
They're in bibbed overalls.
I get excited
and
about it.
Ball caps on, and it's a
I'm
pretty
an
laid back
attention
crew.
seeker. I'm kidding.
Pretty laid back crew.
You guys want cookies for the road before you go?
I've got a meeting.
You want some, Tim?
something, so I'm probably going to take an early lunch around 11. But
You want a Rice Krispie treat?
yeah,
Go to.
I'm going to come up in just a second. Okay.
Salt?
He's welcome too, but I don't think he wants to drive 30 minutes.
That's the opposite
30
way.
minutes that way. Are you going back towards
That's a
traffic?
kind offer.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
Yeah, we did that.
Same program he used.
238, right? And left.
238 left. I can't see. 1. Third.
They just signed it.
Maybe third.
40 count of these, we have like 60 count. Bars you used to come mediate with me, because I would
Well,
always
there's
have
a
full
cookout
snacks,
on
candy
the
bars, like,
corner there.
like
there.
Skittles, full Starburst, everything, like.
Maybe can do something today.
I heard somebody the other day talking about that.
Yeah, and he did not have
That's Galen's favorite.
It is a good place.
Several of them.
Lebanon, Murfreesboro, Niceville, and Hendersonville. I've never eaten the one in Hendersonville, but I've eaten the other 3.
Murfreesboro's though, original.
Yeah, Murfreesboro, we used to go there on Thursday night.
Yeah, no, it was, they just expanded probably in the last 10 years and years.
It's got the.
So at time.
Restaurants like.
This
Migration.
this are out here.
How are you doing?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm all right.
Get your umbrella, Jackie.
Oh, I would have. I'm glad you reminded me. I don't need it. It's not supposed to start raining till.
After lunch, that's what I'm glad about. Getting in front of the rain. I usually drive.
Ma'am?